Welcome today on Tuesday 19th of June 2024, and the sermon on faith that I'm sharing today as this title. Today I'm going to talk about things to add to your faith to be fruitful and not barren. Things to add to your faith to be fruitful and not barren. And so you can ask this question: can someone's faith be barren? Or can someone's faith and calling be barren? Absolutely yes. If you can see in 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 8. Later, if you can check that verse, it will tell you that someone's faith, it is possible for someone's faith and calling to be barren. You have faith, but faith that is barren, faith that is not fruitful, faith that is not bearing any fruit. That is what we call a barren faith. So today, ensure that you get to understand things to add to your faith. That means faith on its own, without some things added, you will be able to realize that you may not be fruitful. You can only claim a lot of faith, but if that faith is not added to certain things, as we shall see in 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 8, if that faith is not added some things, then it will definitely, absolutely be barren, and your calling eventually will be barren. So today, before I get to things to add to your faith to be fruitful and not barren, I would like to do a recap of what we shared yesterday on 18th of June 2024. Yesterday we were looking at the gears that drive faith, and we saw that in Matthew 23:23, we saw that the first gear is knowing the law or the principles or the rules or the regulations. The second gear is knowing justice and righteousness. Then the third gear is revelation of God's mercy. Then finally, you now have a faith that has been geared towards results. And just still on recap of yesterday's message. I've been reading, there was a time I read through God's generals, and among them I was looking at the story of Smith Wigglesworth, who was renowned as the apostle of faith. And he had one slogan that says, only believe. And he believed that faith plus compassion or mercy equals to miracles. And then another recap to capture is that another way to access mercy is by being merciful to others. We had seen that there are quite a number of ways of obtaining mercy. You can listen to my message of yesterday on 18th of June 2024. I talked about how to obtain mercy, which I've just mentioned in this recap, that mercy is the most powerful gear that drives faith. And so among the other ways of obtaining mercy, I said that another way of obtaining mercy is by being merciful to others. That is Matthew 5:7. It says that blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. When someone is merciful, he also obtains mercy. Then the third recap, very fast, that I'm picking is on Hosea chapter 6 verse 6, which says that from where you will be able to understand when God shows you mercy, mercy is more powerful than sacrifices you can ever make. That God desires mercy more than sacrifice. Mercy is such a very powerful tool. It is more than sacrifices that you can ever make. Now, on today's message, which is things to add to your faith, to make your faith fruitful and not barren. That is in 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 8. It says that do diligence. Do what? Diligence. That means this one is something that you have to put effort to add to your faith. That means you can have faith, but if you don't put effort, if you don't do diligence, then these things will not add themselves automatically. When you are told to do diligence, it means that it is something that requires your effort. So 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 3 to 10. After you've had faith, then the first thing that you have to add to your faith is goodness. That means by doing good to the others, by doing good to overcome evil. Then the second thing to add to your faith is knowledge. That means you got to be learned so much about your faith. You get to learn. Then the third thing you got to add to your faith is temperance, or controlled temper. Be able to control your temper. If you want to see your faith grow, then the fourth thing that you got to add to your faith is patience, and that is patience with people and being able to wait on God. Then the fourth thing that you got to the fifth, sorry, I think that should be the fifth. I said that the first one is goodness, second is knowledge, third is temperance, then the fourth one is patience, then the fifth one to add is godliness. That means you should, as you grow in your faith, you should be looking more like God. And that is by when you are achieving godliness, then you should be looking more like God. Then the sixth thing that you got to add to your faith is brotherly kindness. Then the seventh thing and the last thing that you got to add to your faith is love. If you can study 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 3 to 10, it will tell you all these things, that you got to do diligence to add these things to your faith. That means if you don't have these things, the Bible says that whoever does not have these things, these seven things, in an increasing and abounding measure, that means in an increasing measure, if you don't have these things in an increasing measure, then you are bound to fail. You are bound to fail. You can have faith, but if you don't have these seven things added to it, I tell you from the authority of the scriptures, in 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 8, that you are bound to fail. And it will, if you lack these seven things in an increasing measure, the Bible says that you will forget that you have already been forgiven your past sins. That means whoever has faith but has not yet believed that he has been forgiven his past sins based on the increase of these seven things in his life, then this person is likely to still continue living a life of self-judgment, a life of low self-esteem, a life of self-rejection, because he's already judging himself that he has not been forgiven his past sins. So this person, you'll find that he does not have the courage even to do witnessing, because he thinks that when he goes to witness, people will remember that he used to be like this and he used to be like that. But I can tell you from the authority of the scriptures that when you have these things in an increasing measure, these seven things, that is knowledge, that is goodness, then knowledge, then temperance, then patience, then godliness, then brotherly kindness, then love. If you don't have these things in an increasing measure, then I tell you, you are bound to fail in your faith. Is there anyone who wants to have a faith that is barren, faith that is unfruitful? There is no one. And so I want to encourage you that these are things that you got to do diligence. Do diligence. Do diligence. Do diligence to add these things to your faith. And so I want to end the sermon of today at that point.